The Eagles 26 rolls on next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Numbers 22 and 21. One, a hallmark of consistency, and the other, a bright, shining star who faded fast. Stay with us to find out who's next here. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles show on a Thursday afternoon. Bo Wulf, Fran, Duffy here as we roll on live from the Xfinity Lounge and presented by ALLCITY, the Eagles 26. Boy, what a great episode on Tuesday, Fran. Hugh Douglas, Asante Samuel, nailed it.
Just unbelievable stuff from you guys.
The insight, the comedy.
I mean,
the nudity.
As good as it gets. But I'm excited for this one because we're getting a little bit further back.
Yes, and we can get into that. Let's just get right into it because we actually got a lot to get to on the show. We've got some guests joining us, so stay tuned for that as we open up number 22 on the list. Over the course of 9 seasons, from the start of 2000 through the end of 2008, 18 different linebackers started for the Eagles. There were 8 different starting tight ends, 13 different running backs, 15 wide receivers, 5 quarterbacks, and believe it or not, 6 different fullbacks, 8 safeties, 11 cornerbacks, 9 defensive ends, 8 defensive tackles, 4 left tackles, and 15 different interior offensive linemen all started games. At right tackle, for 144 straight games, there was just one. Fittingly, on the day that Jon Runyan broke Herm Edwards' franchise record for consecutive games started, a different offensive lineman, Todd Herremans, was the one in the spotlight for catching a touchdown pass in a win over the Seattle Seahawks. Never one to crowd the spotlight. Dependable. Tenacious. Runyan was exactly who Andy Reid hoped he would be when the team signed him as the first major free agent addition of Reid's tenure, just a few weeks after Runyan's appearance in the Super Bowl with the Tennessee Titans coming off a second-team All-Pro season. Runyan's pairing with left tackle Trey Thomas gave the Eagles pillars on either side of Donovan McNabb. Pass protection? Runyan was ahead of his time as a right tackle, holding off the likes of Michael Strahan. And yeah, as the name suggests, he would run you into the ground. A throwback player who also became a throwback congressman, opting not to seek re-election in part because of frustration with his own party for their role in a government shutdown, who added, "Politics shouldn't be a career, and I never intended to make it one." Runyan gave the ascending Eagles' dynasty of competence the edge it needed. His accolades won't overwhelm you. Just 1 Pro Bowl in 2002 and the team's offensive MVP award in 2005, which he explained was because he was the last guy left standing. But one could argue the honors would be greater had he not made a living making enemies with every defensive player in the league. The ultimate guy who you love as a teammate and hate as an opposing player, Runyan was Philadelphia's for 9 hard scrabble, gritted teeth seasons. He cements himself as number 22 on our list of the Eagles' 26 greatest players of this century, and here he is, Jon Runyan. Jon, thank you so much for taking the time.
Good to be here.
All right, so let's get into it. And one thing that we have sort of talked about is you were so known for Eagles fans for your toughness, your durability, and I think there's a way in which that maybe undersells how good of a football player you were. And so what do you hope your legacy is to Eagles fans?
I mean, it's really that just dedicating yourself to someone or something and showing up every day and, putting your best foot forward. I go through this, even telling my own son or guys that I'm coaching, goes, your best ability is your availability, number one. And, I kind of took that and throughout my whole career, I had this conversation last week with some old friends. I goes, they tried to replace me twice with Shawn Andrews and Winston Justice. So
right.
It was just that thing. If you never give, the younger guy who's cheaper than you are and has less experience than you do, the opportunity to prove he can actually do it, he's probably not going to have enough experience to overtake you. And that is the best thing. Is like, are you injured or are you hurt? You just have to show up and play.
And yet, I'm sure that there were a lot of times where, what you were playing through was a lot. Everybody wants to be on the field. For you to be able to do it for 144 consecutive games, what was that mentality that allowed you to play through some of the really difficult times?
I think it was just a mind over matter, if you will, kind of deal. It's like, if you really think about it, so if your medical team tells you you're not going to injure yourself further, it's just not going to be comfortable. And then you have to flash back to, it gets a little tough, like kind of waddling up to the line of scrimmage, putting your hand in the dirt and getting in that stance. Like all that stuff hurts. But you know what you're not thinking about the second that snap happens? Mm-hmm. That pain you're thinking about getting off on the snap count, anticipating where this guy's going, getting your technique down, getting your, 2 or 3 steps into the point of contact. So you're not focused on the fact that you're in pain. You're focused on executing your job. And so when you can actually go out and do that and have that disconnect and have a belief that you can play through that kind of stuff and not further injure yourself, that's really all it is about flipping that switch on and off. And, it's the same thing. You can't go out and, play how I played on the NFL football field and actually behave that way in society, or you'll end up in jail. So it's the ability to turn that switch on and off too.
Were you always wired that way as a kid growing up, or was there a time when you sort of like talked yourself into switching that flip?
Well, I think I probably took it in basketball and early on. It was like, especially you're sitting in a a 2-1-2 zone or a 2-3 zone. And it's like, this lane area is mine. If you're going to come in here, you're going to earn this. So it kind of really started from my basketball, because I didn't play organized football till I was a junior in high school. So a lot of that stuff that I had learned there, on the basketball court kind of carried over. And then really my first experience with actually going to a football camp was at the University of Michigan. And you still had, all the, Bo Schembechler kind of era coaches around that were, it was all harassment on the offensive side of the ball, get in people's faces, push them around, try to get them to, antagonize them, try to get them to retaliate, because that really is one thing I kind of looked at is like, I'm always, poking you and pushing you, and you're trying to fight me. I just took your athletic advantage away from you just because of what I'm doing to you.
Yeah, I'm curious from your perspective as such an agitator on the field in your post-career life, when you come across guys who, you guys hated each other on the field, is there do you come together and sort of laugh about that, or does that tension still exist?
No, I mean, they get what it was, and it's hard to really get someone there. Like, it's got to be constant. It's harassment. Like, you're just running up and bumping into them. And I think the psychology of it is like, I don't say a lot, so I run into you. I'm not saying anything. So you kind of get in people's head, and they get to thinking about what your intent is, and let them figure that out. And while again they're thinking, what happens on the football field when you're thinking? You slow down. And then I just took his advantage away from him again.
That's well said. Now, one thing that we're obviously going to talk about is the partnership between you and Trey Thomas. And so I'm curious what that was like for you, the two of you guys holding down those 10 poles together for so long and truly building a foundation for the entire Eagles franchise of how they've approached the offensive line position ever since.
Well, I think we both are pretty much had the same frame, if you will. I think Trey's drastically more athletic than I am. So it's just that, and what it really comes down to is what we've been talking about. Really, it's consistency. You know, he had the ability to do it. He went out and did it day in and day out. And I think, you know, especially for an organization, when you can have two tackles like that, you can try to, and you know, over our tenure, you know, there were many pieces in the middle that changed around in there that allowed that to happen. So, you know, yeah, you don't want to go into every season and change all 5 guys, but I want to say there was probably a 2-year run there when we played with 4 or 5 of the same starting linemen up there. So that continuity of it, you know, it becomes like your siblings and all that kind of stuff, or your significant others, where you complete their sentences for them because you've been in the line of fire so many times. That's what it really builds. And you know, even the coaching staff, so they can game plan around, you know, different defenders, different defensive fronts. I know I had this conversation before I came here with Mike Munchak, who was my O-line coach in Tennessee, you know, Hall of Famer himself. Like, he goes, I'm not going to ask you to do it against, you know, Reggie White. I'm going to have someone else, you know, go the other direction and do that play against someone that's a little less talented than Reggie White is. So the coaching staffs kind of get into that kind of thing too, and game plan around to take advantage of what your skill set matchups are against, you know, from the defenders across from you.
If I can circle you back to that time leaving Tennessee and joining the Eagles, you're coming off of the Super Bowl that season. It was, you know, Andy's first real big signing. Obviously, they made you a priority. What led to you wanting to be part of this sort of foundation rebuild?
Well, I think that it's a rebuild. I had this conversation with somebody last week, just talking about when you look at the roster that was in Tennessee. You know, you can start with Bruce Matthews, you can go to Brad Hopkins, you can go to Steve McNair, you can go to Eddie George, you can go to Javon Curse. You know, Blaine Bishop was there, Marcus Robinson was still there, Henry Ford was still there. Like, you know, you had all these stars, and you go into a rebuild and you can see, you know, all the roster cuts and the moves that Andy was making even the year before I came here is like, he's trying to do something different, and it's an opportunity to be part of that instead of just being one of the guys that's like 7, 8, 9, 10 down the list. You're actually going to be able to put your mark on that rebuild. And, you know, thank God it worked out, and it was a chance I took, but it was a great opportunity.
And the thing that I mentioned before, do you sort of take pride in the fact that what you built, that foundation, has really laid the path for what has been like 25 years of pretty impressive offensive line play that really did start with you and Trey?
Yeah, I mean, and it's really not anything I did besides taking the leap of faith and actually coming here.
Yeah.
It was just being myself.
Okay.
And, you know, that kind of you know, style to grow. You know, and that's something that obviously I learned through Michigan football and all that kind of stuff. That became inherently who I was. And to be able to go display that and have guys kind of latch on to it and kind of make that what playing O-line in Philadelphia was all about, that's something to take a little bit of pride in, but it's not anything I pushed. It was like, you know, go back to the old phrase, leading by example. It's like, this is how I know how to play the game, and I know it works. So let's try to go out and do it. And then you got to have the back. You got to, you know, your teammates have to jump on board, and your coaches have to say, yeah, let's keep doing that, but let's use common sense and not doing critical situations and all that kind of stuff. So you have to understand your situational awareness and all that. But, you know, it was a part of the game, and it's really how I believe, and I think a lot of people believe O-line play should happen.
When you are with your old teammates, we saw you at the Brian Dawkins event last month. What are is there a recurring theme? What are the moments that you guys always sort of harp on as you reminisce?
I think one of the biggest one, and we kind of touched on it earlier, talking about playing injured.
Yeah.
I remember, I forget what year it was. It's probably like 06, 07, breaking my tailbone in the middle of the season.
Up, yes.
So that was one of the ones. The unfortunate part is the other big injuries I had were actually in playoff runs. Yeah. So there wasn't even a chance to sit out. It's like you had to play. But, playing with a broken tailbone, which actually still affects me to this day, like sitting on an airplane for more than like 2.5 hours, like it's not a comfortable, thing to be doing. But, that was one of the roughest ones I ever had. And frankly, I don't think for probably a month, I couldn't even sleep because you couldn't roll over in bed. You literally had to wake up and almost sit up, lean forward, and then flip your hips around so you didn't brush your tailbone on the way over.
I don't even know what to say. It's brutal. I mean, but that is like that. You talk about dedicating yourself to your teammates and to the team and to the city, like the lasting repercussions of that. You're a testament to it.
You try to be, and it wasn't. I can tell you, the first couple games I played like that weren't bad. I think we had like 2 consecutive home games, and then we went on the road. And we were flying up to Minneapolis, and I couldn't even sit on the airplane. I was literally kneeling in the seat with my arms over the back of the seat, looking the wrong direction because I couldn't sit. And I remember getting up for game day and showing up to the locker room, and Tom Heckert at the time was the GM, and he comes up to me. He goes, "You going to play today?" And I'm like, "Where's the anesthesiologist at? Because I'm not playing in this current condition." So they had to come in and, dig out the Novocaine and start injecting the tailbone with Novocaine.
Jeez. I mean, you're making me feel like a big old wuss, but I think that's totally fair. Big picture as we talk about this list, Jon. Anybody from that time that you played with the Eagles who you feel like maybe like today's young Eagles fan might not fully appreciate?
Yeah. I mean, besides your, Dawkins and all that
Sure.
kind of stuff, I mean, even the young guys, like most people will remember Troy, but Bobby Taylor, I think, is one guys forget about often. Okay. He was a special one. And then even guys like, Carlos Emmons,
okay.
A good Sam linebacker, can do a lot and all that kind of stuff. And then Trotter for the length of time he played with bad knees.
Yes.
I mean, think about all the stuff he was going through, but, even on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, when you talk about, and I'm sure Brian Westbrook's on your list,
sure.
You think about what he brought to the game that, scared the living daylights out of people. The things we could do with him in the backfield and just put him back there, and empty the backfield out and put him on a strong safety in space. Those type of advantages and matchups you make are just, amazing. But I mean, you had unsung heroes, guys like Chad Lewis that just were very, very consistent, and made plays all the time because he was where he was supposed to be. Those types of role players, every coach I've ever had is just like, do your job, be where you're supposed to be on time, and do what you're supposed to do, and you'll be successful. And that consistency, even though you didn't have the God-given athletic gifts that some of the greats have, that's really what it's all about. And it really comes down to discipline and wanting to.
All right, the last one I will ask you, Jon, is everybody does love sort of the turn of you doing what you do now and being in charge of the discipline for the league. I'm curious, what is the time, if you remember one, where you think that Jon Runyan, the player, would have been fined the most by Jon Runyan, you now?
Well, pretty much, I have my litany of them from back when I played. Yeah. So the only one that, and I have a list. They're actually in a file cabinet in the drawer over here.
That's very funny.
I bring them out every once in a while. So, but when you look at what the fine totals were back then compared to what our salaries were,
right,
and you look at what they are, we were getting fined a lot more back then than we do today.
Interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah. But my one biggest one, I think I got fined one time for playing against the Giants, and I attempted to leg whip someone and did not make contact, and it still got upheld in appeal. Oh. So I'm very, very critical when I go in and do my film review on that to make sure the fouls actually happened.
That's good. It's good to have you. Yeah, it's good to have you on that wall. We appreciate that. Well, Jon Runyan, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Thank you for everything you gave to the Eagles organization.
All right, appreciate it. Good talking to you.
All right, we'll be back with more on the other side here on the PHLY Eagles podcast. What if you, yes, you, could have reliable and intelligent Wi-Fi for 5 years at the same price? Well, good news. That's what Xfinity is bringing to the table and offering you. Imagine Wi-Fi that makes everything in your home work together, that finds and fixes problems before you even notice them. Super intelligent Wi-Fi with a sixth sense that lets you stream the game even when the whole family's online. And what if you could have that Wi-Fi with all your devices working in perfect harmony for 5 whole years at the same price, no hidden fees, no annual contracts, and Xfinity's best equipment included? That is Xfinity's 5-year price guarantee. So lock in your price and stick in that key and twist it and unlock the possibilities with Xfinity. Learn more at xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Select plans only. Restrictions apply. Elkins Chevrolet, run by not one, not two, but 3 brothers, real brothers, big Philly sports fans, local guys, and right now they're going all in. Check out their inventory of Chevy trucks and SUVs, the ones people actually want that are priced to move. If it's on your list, they have it, and these babies are going fast. So if you have been waiting, stop waiting, because once these deals are gone, they're gone for good. Whether it's getting to the game, getting to work, getting out of town, going down the shore, you'll be driving off in the right ride at a price that makes it an easy yes. And here's the difference. At Elkins Chevrolet, there's no runaround, no back and forth, no games, just real brothers making real deals every single day. Elkins Chevrolet, real brothers, real deals, and a whole lot of honking good service. Route 73 South in Marlton, Elkins Chevy. Tell them PHLY sent you. All right, we are back on the PHLY Eagles podcast, and we are discussing number 22 on the list of the Eagles 26, Jon Runyan, with who better than the voice of the Eagles Hall of Famer, the great Mike Quick. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Hey, man, thanks for having me on, you guys. It's been too long. And I'm not the voice. I'm the guy behind the voice.
Well, that's the man next to the voice.
Next to the voice, yeah.
You are the conscience of the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm the guy next to the voice. So yeah, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Of course, and you have seen all of this up close, more up close than anybody. And so we're going to start with Jon Runyan, and we want to ask you about how much he sort of changed that Eagles team when he signs in 2000, and it was sort of a declaration of intent from Andy and the front office that this was the kind of player they needed on that roster.
Well, it's the kind of player that they needed for several reasons. I think the attitude that Runyan brought to the offensive line, not to mention his skill set. Jon was a 6'6" guy, 330 or 40 pounds, and he was athletic, could really move, could get out on the perimeter and block. He was strong enough that he could post against any rusher, any pass defender, any offensive lineman. I think if there was a slight, it was probably because he's 6'6" and he can't get down to those guys who are really short and 6 feet guys, and they could get under him with leverage. But Jon Runyan was a great addition to this football team, and the attitude that he brought, the work ethic, and just how hard he played. Sometimes, beyond the whistle, maybe, but that was Jon, and he was great. And I think more than anything, the attitude that offensive line needed at that time, Jon brought that nastiness, that attitude to the offensive line that helped them in a lot of games.
I think that when we talk about Runyan, we are always talking about the nastiness, right? And the tenacity and the consistency, the reliability as well, which we will get to. But quickly, I do think that sometimes undersells how good he was as a player. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, that's a really good point because we will many times lead with how tenacious, how nasty. We'll lead with that, but he was a great football player. You know, playing to the whistle is not a bad thing, and that's the way he played. Sometimes just slightly beyond the whistle, but it wasn't a bad thing. But again, the way he played the game and how hard he played, and for me, it was that area when we started to see a lot of athletic linemen, guys who could get out on the edge and run, and guys who were really good at passing off the double teams. If a guy's his guys looping to the inside and there's a guy from the inside looping to the outside, his ability to square up on that guy, get hands on that guy, and keep him away from his quarterback. Jon Runyan was a hell of a football player.
And also his acquisition, his signing from Tennessee, that was like the first big hallmark free agent for Andy Reid,
Yes.
right? What does that say about kind of like the new era with him as the head coach?
So I think with Andy Reid as the head coach, you knew, and we learned to know if you didn't know, he was going to put special attention and special emphasis on the offensive line. And that's what they did when they signed Jon Runyan. And I think at the time, Runyan might have been the highest paid player at the position or highest paid offensive lineman. That's how much they wanted Jon Runyan. But it started to, it will help to build that offensive line that became a dominant offensive line. And you guys know, if you can't dominate at the line of scrimmage, you can't win football games. Any team that's successful, that are having a lot of wins, it begins with that. It begins with the ability to win at the line of scrimmage. And Jon Runyan was a big part of that and a big part of the success of this team because they were able to do that.
Yeah, I think we will get into this a little bit more in the Trey Thomas conversation, perhaps, but it's hard to divorce the two of them together, John and Trey.
Yeah.
And you talk about building a foundation. I mean, that was not just the foundation for those teams. It's been the foundation for the Eagles organization since 2000, is you've got these two tackles who you can rely on. And after John and Trey, it's Jason Peters, and then it's Lane Johnson, and then it's Jordan Mailata. Like, this is how Andy Reid built the team. It's how Andy Reid taught Howie Roseman to build the team. It is foundational to what has been such a good stretch for the organization as a whole.
Bowen, if you look at successful teams, I really believe that you got to have a quarterback for sure. But when you have a quarterback, it allows you to go out and spend your resources in other areas. And one of the main areas, the main area after you have a quarterback, is that you have to fortify the offensive line and make sure that you can be really competitive there. When you can be really competitive there, and especially if you can be dominant there, and when you talk about Trey and John working together, they were bookends. And you think about, when I think about, that era, I think of those two guys at the same time. In fact, they went into the Eagles Hall of Fame together. And it's really because that's the way we see those guys. They were just great together. They were like peanut butter and jelly.
I only know of one other combo that went into the Eagles Hall of Fame together, and we're talking to one of them. I think the one example too that kind of points to the turn of the tides with the Eagles' focus on the offensive line was looking at Runyan, and this is pre-social media, football analysis in the media was so different in the early 2000s. But I remember watching those teams. This is like high school years for me, and the big focus as the Eagles were trying to overtake the Giants. They hadn't beaten the Giants in years, and it was like, they lose 9-10 games in a row. Everybody always would talk about Jon Runyan versus Michael Strahan. And, obviously both guys had their share of wins, and Strahan was a great player, so he would get the best of Runyan at times. But what do you remember about those matchups, and what did it say when things finally did turn and they were finally able to beat that Giants team? And, a lot of that was on the back of the offensive line.
For me and for most football fans, you want to see who's scoring the points and where the ball is going, if your running backs are getting off and making people miss. But during that time, you had to watch the matchup with Jon Runyan and Michael Strahan. It was just must-see TV. So many times I found myself focused on the two of them and trying to figure out how that matchup was going to even out or who's going to win that matchup. And they had battles. They were great. It was great to watch. In fact, when a guy singles you out, Michael Strahan goes into the Hall of Fame and he singles out Jon Runyan as one of the guys who's the reason why he was standing there accepting his gold jacket is because he knew that he had to work harder. He knew that he had to be ready for that matchup against Jon Runyan. And yeah, that was must-see TV. That was just a great era of Eagles football. And when you look at individual matchups, I don't remember a better one, than that individual matchup, Strahan and Runyon.
I want to ask you about Runyan's dependability. The fact that he
Yeah.
plays all 144 games over the course of his 9-year career with the Eagles, sets the franchise record for consecutive starts during that time. Having been in a locker room, knowing that you can depend on a teammate, that no matter what, he's going to be out there. And we know that he was playing through all kinds of injuries. What is the importance of that for a guy in the locker room?
Yeah, that's so important when you see how much a guy is willing to give of himself. And so, anyone to play when you're fully healthy, but then when the season progresses and you start to break down physically, but you find a way, if it's duct tape, if it's glue, you find a way to put yourself back together so that when the ball goes up on Sunday, you're there, you're reliable, they can count on you. And Runyon was certainly one of those guys. I like that you make this point, Bo, because I remember a game. I don't remember exactly the team that the Eagles were playing, but we were on the road. And I remember the night before the game, watching Runyon walk around, after their meetings and after their meals, and he couldn't sit down. He had a fractured tailbone or something to that effect, but the guy couldn't even sit in a chair. That's how bad it was. But when the ball was tipped off,
Yeah.
Jon Runyan was lining up and fighting and winning. It's just kind of a hallmark of John, who he was as a player. The fact that no matter what, you could count on Jon Runyan.
And I mean, who knows how much he would be fined if he himself were in charge of the league, given all of the antics as well.
Yeah, isn't that something? It's just amazing how he's the guy that everyone talked about as a dirty player, hitting after the whistle, diving over the piles after the whistle, and he ends up getting the job. How serendipitous is that? Jon Runyan now is the head of fines, and he's policing the league now.
It's like it's
Frank
like
Abagnale.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. The guy from Catch Me If You Can getting hired to catch the other thieves. It's very funny. All right, some more wide-ranging questions about the Eagles 26 for you, Mike. Before we're going to bring it back for number 21 on this list. But I just as you think about this, you've been there watching this team up close for so long. Let's start at the top. Let's say non-quarterback. Who would be at the top of your list? Would it be Dawkins? Would it be Lane? Would it be Kelsey? Would it be BG? Who would be number one in your book? Oh, he's ducking the question.
You scared him off.
How dare you? He knows better. He knows better than to than to throw somebody off the bus. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more on the other side of the PHLY Eagles podcast. We get to number 21 on the list. Stay with us. My daughter was asking me the other day, is it officially summer yet? Because school has ended, camp has started, it's getting hot outside. I said, it's close, but it is not officially summer yet. Not until Hoagie Fest is back. That's right. You know it's officially summer when Hoagie Fest comes back to Wawa. and we got to know what is your go-to Wawa order. Good news about Hoagie Fest this summer, bringing even more value to the table. Right now, you can get any shorty hoagie, wrap, or chicken sandwich, plus a bag of Hers chips and a small fountain drink for just $6. And if you're feeling extra hungry, make it a classic meal for only $8. We're talking big flavor, great value, same Hoagie Fest energy we all know and love, but it's only here for a limited time, so get it while you can. Hoagie Fest is back at Wawa. Gotta have a Wawa. Let me tell you what I like. I like something that actually rewards the way that you already spend your money. You get your money you're spending working for you. That's what happens at TrueMark with the Everyday Elite Visa credit card from our friends at TrueMark Credit Union. We're talking up to 4% cash back on eligible everyday purchases. And you know what's eligible? Gas. So when you're filling up that tank, you're also filling up your bank account. And for a limited time, new cardholders also get a 0% introductory APR on purchases for the first 12 months and then under 18% APR after that. That means more cash back, less catch. Apply today at TrueMark.com or stop by any of TrueMark Credit Union's 24 branch locations. Rates based on credit worthiness, 4% cash back on eligible purchases. Bonus categories capped annually. Restrictions apply. Visit TrueMark.com for details. Insured by NCUA. Welcome back to the PHLY Eagles podcast. Bo Wulf and Fran Duffy. Thank you to Mike Quick. Thank you to Jon Runyan for joining us. Before we move on to number 21 on the list, Fran, any thoughts from you? Any final thoughts on Runyan before we move on?
Yeah, I just think, for me, he was just the beacon of consistency and like the tone setting nature of that offense, of that era. That we talked about it with Mike, but like those battles with Michael Strahan, that's one of the things that when I think of Jon Runyan, I do think of the physicality. I loved the Catch Me If You Can.
I like that we were both thinking that. The Abagnale, yeah.
The Frank Abagnale, thank you. But to me, like thinking of the Strahan battles, I was glad that you guys brought up that you and Mike brought up the fact that like he's always known for the physicality, but he was also more than that. Player. Yeah, he was just a really good player. The fact that you had those kind of bookend tackles really kind of set the tone for what the identity of this organization would be for the decades to come.
What's funny is my time covering the team starts right after Runyan. So I started as an intern with the Eagles in 2009.
Wow.
And he had moved on.
Yeah.
But there was a one time that summer where they worked him out.
Really?
He was coming off of microfracture surgery. And it was like, there's no way he's going to be able to play. But it was because that right tackle experiment with Shawn Andrews was not going to work out. And it just speaks to, Andy knew the guy would bring him back if he could. His body wasn't ready. He eventually retired. But like a servant to the franchise in every way.
I would be remiss if I didn't say during your opening salvo going through the Jon Runyan, my ears perked up when you went through the number of players at each position.
Yeah. It's a little unfair because some positions start multiple.
Yeah, but the
six fullbacks.
The fullbacks, I was like, all right, let's see how many in my brain I could do. So that was a fun little mini exercise.
You want to see how many you can do?
Well, this isn't because I've been thinking about it now for some time. Cecil Martin was at the very beginning.
Correct.
Then you go into John Ritchie. Because Rich, and I remember when they signed Richie. Richie's famous. Do you remember with him as a player? He would get bloody his nose constantly. So John Ritchie, they drafted. This was one I was thinking of because I was thinking of the fullbacks they drafted. They drafted Stanley Havili that was the 2011
that's
draft.
Later, yes.
Yeah. So and he was like the last of it because it was Havili was like the running back fullback hybrid.
I liked Havili too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That was a fun. He was a fun player. But then they brought in Owen Schmidt because Havili didn't work out. So I was thinking like, who are the guys in between? Obviously Leonard Weaver.
Yep.
I was trying to think of like who the other one was, and it hit me. Thomas DePay. Is that everybody?
No, Weaver's not in there.
Oh, that's because after. It was because it's after Runyan.
Yeah. So Cecil Martin, John Ritchie, Thomas DePay, Josh Perry.
Oh, Josh Perry is a great one. That's a great name.
Now you're gonna there's one who you've worked with.
Who I've worked with? Oh, Dan Klecko.
Dan Klecko.
Great one.
And then finally Stanley Pritchett.
Yeah. Yeah. He was in Chicago before Philly.
That's right.
Yeah.
After Philly.
Or after Philly. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stanley
Pritchett.
He
Great
started
name.
one game, I believe.
Yeah.
So there you go. Last thing before we move on.
Okay.
We talked about this in the round table with Tim and Anthony.
Yeah.
You and I thought Trey ahead of Runyan.
Yes.
They both thought Runyan ahead of Trey. We've landed with Trey ahead of Runyan. How do you feel about that?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I was looking at my list, and I had Runyan.
I don't love to get into like we're not bringing anybody down.
Yeah,
it's just
right.
Yeah,
it's these are the 20 that.
And this is one where I do think the importance of the position a little bit,
of course,
matters. But yeah,
I had Runyan at 23.
Okay.
I have who is number 21 at 22. So I have both of them right next to each other on my list.
There you go. Well, let's get to it right now. Number 21 is going to be brought to you by our friends at Shady Rays. The future is bright. And it's fitting because this is a guy who would wear some sunglasses. When the Eagles lost their third consecutive NFC Championship game at home to the Carolina Panthers on January 18th, 2004, they started two receivers. James Thrash finished the game with 1 catch for 9 yards on 6 targets. Todd Pinkston was targeted 4 times and finished with 0 catches for 0 yards. In the aftermath, it must have been the case that somewhere an Eagles fan stumbled across a monkey's paw. I wish the Eagles had a number 1 receiver. A little less than 2 months later, that wish came true. When the Eagles completed a 3-team trade to mollify the Ravens and 49ers in the wake of their disputed trade, the kind of headache that might have foretold how the next few years would play out. Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb had their man. Philadelphia, meet Terrell Owens. And what an introduction it was. In T.O.'s first game at the Link, the Eagles' second preseason game, Donovan McNabb lined up under center with an I formation behind him on the team's first play from scrimmage at the 19-yard line. Terrell Owens, everybody, all eyes, all attention on T.O. and how this will all work out, Jim Nantz said on the CBS broadcast. Well, I wouldn't be surprised at the first play if they don't try to get him the ball, to get the football to Terrell Owens, said Phil Simms. Looks his way, fires his way. He's there at the 45, inside the 20. And on the first play at Philadelphia in an Eagle uniform, Terrell Owens takes it 81 yards right on the jersey number. That's how Nantz called it. As the bomb was complete and off to the races, the Eagles were. It was time to party. In week 1, Owens only had 68 yards receiving, but that came with 3 touchdowns. He topped 100 yards receiving 5 games in a row from week 3 on, and the Eagles raced out to a 7-0 start. It was crystal clear that T.O. was the missing piece for a team ready to finally get over the hump. Act 2 began in week 15, when the first sign of the unintended consequences from this wish come true occurred as Cowboys safety Roy Williams brought T.O. down from behind, fracturing the star's fibula. The team pressed on without him, defeating the Vikings at home in the divisional round before finally getting over the NFC Championship hump the old-fashioned way, with Donovan McNabb throwing for just 180 yards in a 27-10 victory over Michael Vick and the Atlanta Falcons. Against all odds, T.O.'s supercharged rehab made it seem like he would be available for the Super Bowl, confirming to some that he was, in fact, otherworldly. He finished the big game with 9 catches for 122 yards. The number 1 receiver had a number 1 receiver type game in the Super Bowl. But it wasn't enough. Be careful what you wish for. Then came the real drama. Demand for a new contract. Driveway push-ups. Discontent with the quarterback in public and private and public again, which led to a team-issued suspension for conduct detrimental to the team. On a per-game basis, Owens was actually more productive in 2005 than 2004, totaling 763 receiving yards in just 7 games, the only time in franchise history a receiver averaged over 100 receiving yards per game. Of course, that obscures the reality. The discord eventually led to divorce, with irreconcilable differences cited implicitly on March 14th, 2026, when the team released Owens just 2 days shy of 2 years to the day when they first acquired him. How then to remember, let alone rank, such a meteoric rise and fall? Is it better to have loved and lost a Hall of Fame receiver than never to have seen his abs at all? For now, we settle on number 21 in the Eagles' 26. Terrell Owens, you were everything the city wished for. That'll close the book on The Future is Bright, presented by Shady Rays. Fran, I'm going to lean on you here because you were a fan at the time, a young eaglet.
Freshman year of college.
Okay.
I remember the day that the trade was executed. I forget if it was the day, because it was Javon Curse and Terrell Owens the same day. And obviously, huge excitement.
Sure.
I called into radio station.
Really?
I was 18 years old. I was not allowed to do it, but so fake name, fake age.
Sure.
I don't know why I did the fake name. I could have kept the name. But
What do you have to be, 21?
You had to be 21 at the time.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. So I would typically, when I did it, I would call, because they used to be pretty good at being able to read through it. So I would call at night. Because it was like,
Sure.
they're just dying for people to call at night. But this one was so special. I was like, I got to call to the afternoon. So getting on, and I just the excitement level was palpable. What's that?
We got to find that.
That'd be a fun one. But that said, it was huge because for years it wasn't just like, like the Eagles have had good receivers, but they didn't have that guy. It was bad.
Yes.
It was a bad receiving core, and Donovan had no help. And so to be able to say like now they've got one of the best in the league to do it, it was huge, league-shattering news to add that player to that offense.
And I think it is. I think we'll get to this in a little bit, but the degree to which it was such a phenomenon in Philly.
Yeah.
Cuz talked about what it was like at Lehigh. Just the degree to which this was exactly what all Eagles fans wanted.
Yes.
All we needed is a number one wide receiver.
Yep.
And here he is. And the degree to which he delivered on that, everything about that over the course of those tumultuous 2 seasons.
Yeah. Because that's the thing is that the Eagles tried to get guys, get Freddie Mitchell was a first-round pick, Todd Pinkston was a second-round pick, Torrance Small was a third-round pick, like Billy McMullen was a third-round pick. Like they tried during that era to even right after, right? They move on from Terrell Owens and they draft Reggie Brown in the second round. The ensuing offseason, like they kept trying at that position, but they could never hit. But you knew, there was no guessing with Terrell Owens. You knew you were adding, honestly, a future Hall of Famer. Like you knew this guy is one of the best to do it in the NFL. The phenomenon was real back then.
What is your close your eyes, think of Tio? What is your number one memory?
Honestly, it was the debut against the Giants. 3 touchdowns. And coming back and doing that, in that game in three different ways, right? Like you had a deep ball, you had a red zone play, you had a yards after catch play. I mean, he had some other plays where he didn't score. But going back and watching the film of that offense and of that season, his impact, he was everything you wanted as that playmaker that other teams knew you had to give him extra attention. You had to account for him every play, and he was going to beat you regardless.
Do you think in your mind, without looking at the numbers, that 2004 TO season is the best of your lifetime for a wide receiver?
Yes. Here's the thing. I think the A.J. Brown year, and I agree with what you and BLG a couple weeks ago saying, that 2022 season, I think the A.J. Brown year in 2022 would be the only one of my
make you think
in my waking lifetime, of my Eagles following lifetime, that would make sense. You could put Quick and the other guys in that, but to me, I think looking at from this era on, 2000 on, it's that season or the other. But to me, the novelty of it in 2004, like to go from league worst to league best from a receiver standpoint, that makes it stand out for me.
Quick's best season was before you were born. Just 83, which was better. By some margin. Yeah.
Let's not tell Mike that it was before I was born.
All right, you know what? Let's do it actually. Let's go to break, and then we're going to bring back Mike Quick to talk about T.O. and everything that goes into being a star receiver for the Eagles. Stay with us on the PHLY Eagles podcast. This summer, declare your independence from hot, miserable sleep with Ashley's Stars and Stripes mattress sale. Stay cool all night with cooling mattresses starting at just $699. Plus, for a limited time, save up to $1,000 on select mattresses and pay 0% interest for 60 months. That's 5 full years interest-free on better sleep. So stop sweating through summer nights and sleep cooler, longer, and more comfortably. Freedom from hot sleep today at Ashley's Stars and Stripes mattress sale. Shop more deals in store at ashley.com. We are strapped in for a full season of baseball at the bank, and one of the things that you can do when you're watching the Phils is tap in to a nice deal from Bet365 with promo code PHLY365. Here's the deal. Bet $10, get $200. What's better than that? Right now at Bet365, it's the perfect time to prepare for summer in South Philly thanks to their Bet $10, get $200 in bonus bets deal. All new users have to do is sign up and make their first $10 bet, and Bet365 will throw you, you see what they did there? Maybe they'll pepper it to you. Maybe they'll hit it to you. $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. It's easier than predicting Aaron Nola will give up runs the inning after the Phillies score some runs. If you've got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 and older only. Must be physically located in Pennsylvania. Terms and conditions apply. In-app only. Bet365, where winning is everything. We got the 250th anniversary coming up. It's time to declare your independence from hot, miserable sleep with Ashley's Stars and Stripes mattress sale, where you can save up to $1,000 on select mattresses and pay 0% interest for 60 months and get a Coolie mattress starting at just $699. Freedom from hot sleep starts today at Ashley's Stars and Stripes mattress sale. Shop more deals in store or at ashley.com. Welcome back to the PHLY Eagles podcast as we roll on Bo and Fran talking about number 21 on the list, and we welcome back Mike Quick. And truly, who better to talk about this one than Mike? We are talking T.O., Mike, and you laugh because
T.O.
What a phenomenon! What a supernova that season was, and what a whirlwind the following year was. As you think back on T.O., do you first think to the highs, or do you first think to sort of the drama?
I think to the highs first. Yeah. I do. The guy was just so good. He was, when the Eagles acquired T.O., I remember going out to training camp and the lines to just get to Lehigh, to the practice facility, because of this one superstar. Mm-hmm. And, I'd been to Lehigh many times, but I'd never had to sit in the lines of traffic the way we did when T.O. was acquired and everyone was trying to get out to training camp to see T.O. And it was worth seeing. He was worth the price of admission every time.
Well, I talked about it a little bit in the intro on T.O., but it really was the way that the team had been built for so long. It was like, man, if only this team could get a real number one receiver. And then to see them get that guy and him deliver in such a way, it was such a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, he's you talk about guys who can dominate their position, and when I think about Hall of Fame guys, that's what I think. I think, could this guy just go out any day and dominate his position? And he was that guy. But what many people don't talk about, guys, is, and one of the things that I really appreciated about T.O., every day he went to work. And for young players that would come into the league and they're in that wide receivers room and they watched the way T.O. worked, you understood what it was to be a pro and how you needed to work every day to become a pro. And I think a part of that he got from being out in San Francisco with Jerry Rice, because Jerry was a worker. But, every day, it wasn't just Sundays. Every day, T.O. came to work, and I really appreciated that about him.
I think it's a very good point, because this probably applies to A.J. Brown as well, where if your perception of a wide receiver who has wants off the field, or their quote unquote drama surrounding them, that does not mean that they are not dedicated to the craft. And you don't get that good without putting in the time. And boy, I mean, you talk about the rehab to get back for the Super Bowl. I mean, it's sort of a superhuman recovery rate that came with like unbelievable dedication.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. That's like the supernatural kind of stuff that he brought to the party. You break a bone in your leg. I think it broke the fibula.
That's right.
And in 7 or 8 weeks, you're playing in the Super Bowl. That's crazy to me. But he was that dedicated. It's the first time I'd even heard of a hyperbaric chamber. So this guy was going home and sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber, and almost around the clock, he's got the athletic trainers and people working on him. He's that dedicated to the game. He was that dedicated to just being a great football player. And I rarely see him, but even if you look at him now, the guy looks like he'd walk out there and play.
Oh,
he's just a freak.
Well, Mike, what was the best part of his game? Like, I think we've all seen the highlights, and a lot of people that watch the show may not necessarily remember, exactly what was the best part that made him special?
I thought he had the speed to run away from people, even at that size, as big as he was. But I thought when he caught the ball in short spaces, for a guy that big, his ability to turn, push a guy off, or just outrun a guy. There were plays when he would catch the ball on a very short route, and he would make that first guy miss, and the pursuit couldn't catch up to him because he had that speed. Even as big as T.O. he had that ability to get that speed up so quickly that the pursuit of the safeties, linebackers couldn't get to him. The route running was there, not a like a Devontae Smith type of route runner, but the route running was there. He caught the ball really well. But the thing that Fran, when he caught the ball in these short areas and able to run away from people, for a guy that size, that just blew me away many times.
Yeah, I always thought too, and it's something we talked about earlier. The thing that stands out to me when I think of T.O. and I go, think back on that season. Every time there was a big moment, whether it was like the debut, the first preseason game, season opener, big opponents, rivalry games, obviously the Super Bowl, he always came to play. Like that was the best version of T.O. was when the lights were shining brightest.
Yeah, and when you talk about greatness, that's when that's where when you have to show up. If you're gonna be great, you can't just do it, during the week. You got to do it when the big lights are on in the biggest games, and even in the Super Bowl on one leg. The guy was phenomenal. But that was T.O. He loved the bright lights, and he took full advantage of those opportunities when the lights were brightest. The guy was a great player.
Now, if we think about how things ultimately led to a divorce there, at what point along the way did you start to think, all right, this is not going to last?
Yeah, good question. It was the game. It was the Pittsburgh game.
Yeah.
It was the Pittsburgh game when they came off on the sideline, and whatever his issue was, he was following Donovan up and down the sideline. And he was in Donovan's ear, and he was going, and I just, like, at that point, I said, this just may not end well. I understand.
So early. That was mid-season of that year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I understand, I'm a receiver. I understand and I wanted the ball all the time because I know that I can make a difference. And I know that's the way he thinks. Like, you get me the ball and we're going to win. When you're really good, that's the way you think. That's the way you should think. But at the same time, you got to respect the space of that guy because he's got so many things going on, so many things that he has to account for. And there's a way to do that, but I just didn't think that that was the way to do it at that time. You know, you're a man. You do things the way you choose to do them. But that was kind of the point where I saw this thing going south.
Well, I'm curious about this. Obviously, in the wake of the AJ trade, do you think there is something to like having a great wide receiver, like a truly game-breaking guy, where it's not meant to last in terms of a pairing with a quarterback because there are so many dynamics involved and like the handling of making sure that they get the ball all the time?
I don't believe that, Bo.
Okay.
How about Marvin Harrison?
Yeah, that's good.
You know, there are. How about Steve Largent?
Okay.
How about
Jerry
there's so
Rice,
many
yeah.
guys. Yeah. How about Jerry Rice? There's so many great receivers that
Okay.
they can live in harmony, but then there are guys who are not, for whatever reason, gonna always be in harmony. That's
Okay.
just the nature. That we're different when we play wide receiver.
That's what I'm asking.
You leave us out there all alone by ourselves, and then you expect then you expect us to get along with everybody. It doesn't always work that way.
I know. I always think about like the Jahan Dotson role. Like, hey, Jahan, go out there and run as hard as you can, like 45 plays a game. You might get one ball. Like,
yeah. And then you expect us to get. Then you expect us to get in the huddle and kumbaya, get along with everyone.
It's a tough life.
Let me ask you this kind of big picture. When you hear, you're doing the top 26 Eagles of the century, and Terrell Owens is outside the top 20, does that feel right? Or is that like jarring for you? Like knowing the talent, knowing how bright he burned for that one season.
So then I would have to go to the criteria.
Yeah.
Then how are we deciding this? And if it's just on talent, he's got to be in it. But then if you're on the full body, then he's probably outside of it. Yeah. I get that. I get that.
Like would you rank in terms of like Eagles' impact over the course of the century? Would you rank Deshaun or T.O. ahead of one another?
Probably D-Jack.
Yeah.
Because of the longevity.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think that matters. Yeah. All right. Any other final thoughts on T.O. before we give you some quick hitters on the rest of the list?
T.O. The guy had his own song in our stadium. Yep. Come on, man.
Before we get to the list itself, I feel like it would be an abdication of our duty if we didn't ask you about just Devontae this season and what he is stepping into and your expectations for him taking over that number one role.
You know what's funny? I had my I've got a Skinny Batman T-shirt that I wear from time to time. I almost wore that today just for you guys.
I appreciated that.
I love that he's stepping into this role, and I think he's ready for the role. I think he's been ready for the role. But I think the distribution will be a little bit different now. You look back at the distribution of the ball over the past couple of years, and it's been heavily Devontae, AJ, and then you mix in some Dallas Goedert. I think the distribution will be a lot different, which will, I think, help him to be a number one. To me, he has the talent of a number one. He is a number one wide receiver. Because you have AJ, he played the second like a 1A or 1B.
Right.
But without a doubt, he's a number one wide receiver. And in this system, the system that I'm expecting to see, I think he flourishes even in this system.
Okay, there you go.
I mean, I feel like we tried asking him the one time, and
speaking of number one,
so I feel like you got to ask. Yeah, I got to ask this question.
Let's see if we get an answer this time. Who would be number one on your list?
Where? When? Who? What? What are you asking me, Bo?
Who would be number one on your list of a top 26 Eagles since 2000?
Wow. Quarterbacks included?
Quarterbacks included, but you could separate the two of them if you want. Let's say non-quarterback. You got the
quarterbacks
contenders,
include,
I would say. You got Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Brian Dawkins.
So I guess Doc would be my number one if you exclude quarterbacks. But if you include quarterbacks, it's going to be Jalen Hurts for me.
Yeah.
All right.
It is.
Make the case.
It's simply going to be Jalen Hurts. He's taken this team to 2 Super Bowls. He's won one. And, you don't do it without excellent play at that position. So to me, he's number one. And excluding quarterbacks, I would put Doc up there.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I feel strong. I feel strongly that Dawkins is for me. He is my number one. So I agree with you wholeheartedly there.
Yeah,
you want that ring to knock.
I know, but I think it speaks so much that's the impact he had, even though it didn't have that ring, and it's not because of him that he didn't have it.
No.
Now, would you go wide receivers? Would you go AJ and then Deshaun and then T.O.?
I'd go quick.
Since 2000, you still got it? And by the way, I got to tell you, we're talking about T.O.'s season and how great he was. Receiving yards per game, Mike Quick still got him.
That's it.
Come on.
Well, and even the record that AJ broke.
Right.
Extra game.
Extra game. I probably did it in 14. Listen, the record held for almost 40 years, and I probably did it in 14 games.
Give me a break.
Come on, give me a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
Knowing you, how often have you given him crap about that?
I did from time to time.
All right, Mike Quick, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Nobody better to talk about this stuff than you.
Hey, listen, you guys do a phenomenal job, and keep pumping it out because I learn things when I check out your podcast. So keep doing your thing, guys. I enjoy you.
We appreciate that.
Quick.
Thank you so much, Mike. And that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. For Mike and Lindsay and Fran, I'm Bo. As always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.